I was 5 at the time, and my mom's brother had sexually abused me, and I then came up with this level of anger. So I started suffering from bronchitis, throat infection, UTIs. Like, my body was just showing me all the time. I love being human. I didn't like it for a freaking long time, and I did want to check out. And I think sometimes that's what we forget as humans, is that people all want to go out there, but we have to have the human experience. We're planting the seeds. What you choose to do with the planting of the seed is up to you, as we've forgotten how powerful we are as human beings. I have my practice of just closing my eyes, and then Michelle, the personality, steps aside and they come through. They're angelic beings of light, ascended masters who once walked these earth planes.
I've been thinking about this a bit lately because it does feel like there's a lot of people at the moment who are being pushed in ways they don't fully understand. You know, things aren't quite sitting the way they used to be. And for some, it can feel very uncomfortable, like something's coming up that you can't actually ignore anymore. And I think what's interesting in this conversation with Mich is that it's not just about what she's been through. It's what started to open up for her when she stopped holding everything together and actually allowed herself to go into what was there. That's the key. And that's not always easy, as I'm sure you agree. But what came through that for her wasn't something outside of her. It was something that had always been there. So she just started to trust it. So yeah, let me know if this resonates with you. It's a good one. Mich, welcome to the podcast, my lovely.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you for having me here today.
It's beautiful. You have a South African, is it South African accent, or are you from a different part of Africa?
It's South Africa. So I was born in what's now called Zimbabwe. It was Rhodesia. And then we moved to South Africa when we were my parents moved to South Africa when we were quite young.
Beautiful. So you have a South African in New Zealand and a Welshman in Australia having a podcast.
That's like a pub joke.
So
that's awesome.
My first question for you, which I ask everyone on the show, is if you were at an intimate dinner party right now and you sat next to a complete stranger and they asked you what you did for a living, how would you respond?
Gosh, that's a great question. What do I do for a living? I like to share joy and love and become a kindred spirit. It's something that I'm learning in this lifetime. And I think that our labels can kind of put us into brackets, into little suitcases. But if I was to label myself, I'm a channel, spiritual medium, and an energy healer. But over and above all, it's how can I be in service? You know, I love to be in service, but it works this way, both ways. And I know that sounds very cryptic when I'm hearing myself say that, but over and above all, it's kind of just like looking at life and going, I'm here now.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so what do I do with this? There's a lot of stuff going on, you know, and I make lighthearted of it, and people are like, what? She's laughing. But it's something that I think is so important to learn to laugh at ourselves and learn to laugh at just laugh. Don't take it so seriously.
I was going to ask you, the first thing that came out was why joy and love. And I know it seems such an obvious thing, but when you ask people what they do for a living or career, it's normally not rooted in such a deep value. You know, there is something more mechanical or physical. I'm trying to find the right words. If I work at the bank or if I sell T-shirts, or you know what I mean. Instantly joy and love. What's brought you to wanting to spread joy and love, and why do you feel it's important?
Thank you for asking that question, because I know what it feels like to have come through very deep trauma. I know what it feels like to have lived in a victim space for such a long time. I know what it feels like to be angry, resentful, frustrated, carry guilt, and just blame the world for what happened to me. And I came to realize, you know, I feel that we're all awakened. You know, often we will talk about our own awakenings, and my own awakening was when I look back into my past, there was so much that I carried from both my mother's side and my father's side, plus my own childhood. And if you'd like, I can share a little bit about it, but I just realized that I was so in this way of life, I was just holding and squeezing. I talk about contraction and expansion, but I was just squeezing and wanting to be seen, wanting to be loved, wanting to be heard. I used to think I was joyful because I was a dancer, so I could play the part well, be on stage when I needed to perform. I was a sales rep for a long time, but put the smile on, climb in the car and just be sad, be angry, let those thoughts just really just bring me down and make me feel heavy. And then I came to realize by going deep within, which thanks to my ex-husband who had an affair, it was the best thing that ever happened for me, but I used to blame him. I want to be very clear in how I hated men for a very, very long time based on what had happened when I was young. So there's all these, when you look back, and I always say to anybody, when you look back on both sides of how we've come into this world, we carry so much without even carrying. I would call it perhaps a wound of resentment, which my mom had carried towards men herself. So she projected that onto me. And as I started to really dive deep into myself, I was like, oh my God, like I can laugh about it now, but it's like, shit, I've had a lot that's like, and it's not a lot in comparison to some other people. When I look back into what was going on in my body and in my world, car accidents, relationship breakups, just this devastation, this energy of chaos. And I used to look outside of myself all the time for people to love me, men to love me, but I got controlled all the time. So, I kind of went through this monumental moment in my life at one point where I thought I'd done so much work, and then I met a medium and she looked at me and she said, your aura is quite dark. And I was like, what? I was like seriously devastated. And this was a few years ago. And I just thought, righty, I've got to lighten up. What does it feel like to be authentic? And for me, when we're in our true essence of authenticity, we're light, we're joyful. Yes, we go into, grieving. I can go into drama still. I can get connected to different, things that happen in my family. I can most certainly feel and sense sometimes the resentment that still comes up or plays a part. But then I'm like, okay, it's done. I have what I would call a moment, grieve. I would perhaps, cry into a pillow or go for a walk and just spew it out. And I go, okay, come back into that, because that's our innate knowing, that's our blessing, that's our miracle that we all are. And that's how I like to look at how, at myself, but it took me years and years and years because I made life about everybody else. I always used to look at others through different filters of, well, they've got their stuff together. How are they always laughing? How are they? So my laughter felt false,
right,
for a very long time. And then I just realized it was just all the hats that I was taught to wear, because I could feel that I didn't feel full inside of me. There's a very different feeling when you come from your pureness of who we actually are. And the problem that I'd had, because I was working so deeply on my background, my trauma, is that at times I didn't know how to come out of it. So I would go for a social environment. You talk about going to a dinner party. I cleared a wedding table because of my story. And I can laugh about it today, but I think of those people sitting there going, oh my God, because all I wanted people to do was just hear.
yeah,
I was so in my victimhood and, Michelle, who are you? What do you do? Oh, I'm a single mother. And my husband left me. And it was this kind of vibration. You can see unconsciously how I was so out of my body, Guy. I was so detached from my story that I didn't know how to be in my body.
yeah.
And that was due to so much of what I had gone through in life.
Thank you for sharing. So my first instinctive direction to take this is, do you mind going back and what you had gone through? Like, I know, I've had Bruce Lipton on you a couple of times and he speaks about how crucial the first 0 to 7 years are, and even laying a foundation. And quite often we're energetically not in our bodies because it's a protective mechanism. So we start to disassociate from the pains and things, and then, like you say, start to put on a mask and a performance, even though that's not what's going on inside. Would you mind sharing what your experience has been through all that?
Not at all. Not at all. And thank you for asking. So, I love what you shared, because there's parts of my journey, that one of them being when I said to my mom, so my dad was what at that time was called Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe. He was a soldier in the army. My mom, they were young when they got together, and my mom was in a lot of fear. She had 2 young kids under the age of 4 years old. And I said to my mom one time, "Mom, I remember you taking these maroon plates and throwing them at Dad, and I could describe the dining room table, I could describe the headboard." And she said, "Michelle, that's impossible." And I said, "What do you mean it's impossible? I remember it." She said, "I was about 7 months pregnant with you. How do you remember that?" And I came into this world not knowing, obviously, we choose our parents, that my mom she was holding on to her own wounds, her own, what we would term, sufferings, pain, just her emotional soreness. And her dad had had affairs. My dad had had 1 or 2 affairs, I believe. My dad was a weekend alcoholic. There was a lot of drinking, a lot of partying when we grew up. My mom was very angry, though. I remember one of these stories very well, where my dad was a riflesman, and she'd had his rifle, and she was angry with him one time. And she said she had me on the hip, and she was trying to cock the gun to try and literally get him out the house, And that's the anger that I didn't know had affected us so badly. She used to smack us when she, would comb my hair. Whew. She she used to yank so hard because I couldn't sit still. I was so out of my body that I couldn't sit still, and she used to try and make me sit still. So, these tears are tears for that little girl that is still healing, that wound. But I know that there was so much that was between the two of them, and I'm the child that remembered a lot. Like, I used to wet my beds. I was trying to escape at night in my dreams. I'd wake up like in a fright, and if I wet my bed, I knew there was going to be an issue. And it's not her fault. It was just what she was carrying too, I've come to realize over time. But I became a dancer. I then went to purge. I started suffering from bulimia. In my teenagehood, I read a story about sexual abuse, and I was like, oh my gosh, this happened to me. I was 5 at the time, and my mom's brother had sexually abused me, and I then came up with this level of anger. So I started suffering from bronchitis, throat infection, UTIs. Like, my body was just showing me all the time. But dancing was my thing. But then I was purging because I was in self-hatred. And there was a lot of arguing, fighting in our home. And then my best friend at the age of 16 and a half, 17, she had I think it's called spina bifida. She was born with it, and we were very, very good friends. And she had a kidney transplant, and she died. And I just buried that wound. But the beautiful part of this story of her dying, she died in hospice in Johannesburg. And I remember sitting on the couch, watching her parents go for a counseling session before she had, passed over. And I remember watching the counselor come out and go, how is the counselor not devastated? How are people surrounded by death and they're just not devastated? And unbeknownst to me, it was the universe, or my guides, my angels, that were really guiding me into where I am today. And so she passed over. I'd had relationships, not great relationships. They'd all left, not knowing at the time that this was a pattern, an imprint that I'd brought in because my grandfather, my dad, just this, like I say, this anger, this hatred that my mom had also projected onto me. Don't let a man control you, Michelle. Well, that's all I ever did, basically. And then at the age of 24, I knocked her up and killed a young girl. And, you know, there's times where I can talk about the story very openly. I'm very open about it. Was when I looked down to put a straw into a cool drink, and she had misjudged my car, was in and out of court for 2 years, and I was acquitted. But the hard part was not knowing what this all meant. You know, I just was in such deep pain and suffering. And then, so within 1 year, I was involved with a guy. We built a house together. He started becoming violent, and I used to provoke him. And it was kind of like that, you know, the abusive wound. Like, oh, let me see, let me really get an excuse to leave him. And 3 months later, I was made redundant. And 2 months after that, all within 6 months, I knocked him and killed this young girl. So it was just chaos once again. And I just buried it. I went partying in Cape Town. I met my then future husband, and bless his cotton socks, he took on this deeply traumatized woman. I didn't even know it. He didn't even know it. And I was just trying to control life. You know, I was just trying to stay in control, but everything was out of control in my life. And 6 years later, when he'd had an affair, it took me a long time to try and figure it out. But I just chose to leave, and my parents begged me to stay. And my parents had threatened that they were going to take his side in court because we'd had a little girl. And I was devastated. I'm like, what the hell? But this was just their need, their want, their conditional love. And this again is not to blaspheme my parents, to put them down, because I'm still working with time references or times or feelings or emotions that every now and again I'm like, damn it, there it is again. My dad's taking so-and-so's side or whatever, you know? So it's becoming that observer. And that's where I started to observe, because I started to deep dive into those wounds. And I had no idea that when I went on a weekend away, I went to go for a clairvoyance session, and this young man said to me, Michelle, you just don't know how to love yourself. Well, I wanted to throat punch him because I wanted him to help me with my anger. and it's like, what do you even do with that guy? You know what I mean? Like, when somebody's saying to you, don't know how to love yourself, you're like, I have got no idea what you mean. And he had suggested, and again, I just feel like the universe was orchestrating. He had suggested to go on this weekend away with Hospice. And I was guided to go and be with this incredible facilitator. And this was 9 years after I knocked over and killed this young girl. And the beautiful part of that story was that her mother had phoned me. She got my number off the accident report, and she phoned to find out how I was. And her name was Mary. And it blew me away for such a long time that somebody had such deep compassion to actually pick up the phone and ask how I was doing. And on this weekend away, the facilitator, I was going to go work through my divorce. And the facilitator started to ask me and got me into levels and layers of how I felt about knocking over and killing this young girl. My head was so devastated. Literally, it felt like it had cracked open, but my heart had cracked open. And they put me to bed that night because I just cried and cried and cried and like they just couldn't stop. It was like kind of this dam had opened up, and then I was on this course of wanting to explore more about how much I really had suppressed. And it's something I still work on when it shows itself. And I did not know at the time that I was going to become a hospice part-time facilitator or caregiver. And that's the beauty of when you look back, and I look back on my journey, I go, okay, I get, wow. Looking at my 16-year-old, 17-year-old self and saying, that was why I was guided to be in hospice. That was why I was surrounded by death. And that was why I was able to explore, look at that woman. I've always been an observer, I've come to realize. And I think that being a truth speaker comes or shows up in many different ways, but I used to call people out, and my mom used to smack me, like, don't say that, but I think that when I look back, I am a deep feeler, and I would just say things like it is. And sometimes that still happens if I'm really not in my truth of self. And so, yes, it's been a big journey for me. It's been a journey of exploring. It's been a journey of forgiveness, because that weekend in hospice I then started going for counseling, and then I had to learn to forgive my 5-year-old self, because I didn't even know that she was doing anything wrong. And that journey of, being sexually abused and traumatized was where I disassociated from such a young age. It even goes back before then. But that was also my deep hatred for men, without even knowing, it was a trusted human being. And I only shared the story with my parents at the age of 33. So, I feel that in this experience of being human, and thank you for allowing me to share, these wounds are not so open anymore. It was like I just wanted to be a zip and zip myself up and just say, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to go there. And I've had many moments like that where, the story would come up, but it was just a little pocket of the story of sexual abuse, but the hatred wasn't there so much more. Well, I'm going to rephrase it. I most certainly would be able to embrace my uncle today and look him in the eyes and say, I see you and I forgive you. And it's taken me years and years and years of having to go deeply within, because it affected me sexually, it affected me emotionally, it affected me mentally. But it wasn't only that affected me. My mom, who, it was the person who I loved the most, but yet I felt had hurt me the most, didn't nurture me in the way that I'd wanted to be nurtured. And again, that leads me to, you're asking about joy and love, is that sometimes that zip comes down and then it's like, oh, okay, well, there's the story. I look at the story and it's like, wow, how am I feeling about that story? Sure. Wow, I've come such a long way. And then I can, maybe, zip the zip up a little bit. I don't know if I'm giving the right analogy here, but it's really just having to learn. I had to learn compassion. I had to learn. And I know people speak about, well, what is forgiveness? For me in my journey, forgiveness was very, very important. To forgive myself for many different things, because I suppressed the shame. And shame can show up in many different ways. And my body was just in havoc. I'd had car accidents. It was just this, I was never inside of my body. I was just always like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And fight, flight, fight. And I've come to realize PTSD, I never knew that I'd had PTSD. Or I think there's also CPTSD, if I'm not mistaken, which is it's got to do with childhood. I still don't know enough about it. So thank you for letting me share. But this is what I feel is so important, is that we can work through it. I can sit here, I can feel my body. There's little moments where I'm like, oh, I get teary. But overall, I am just in this space of openness, and I genuinely have come to enjoy who I am and love who I am and feel joy, like deep joy, and just be childlike again. I think I probably drive some people mad because I'm like, boing, boing. But it's just this, I just can't help myself, It's just like, this is where I'm at right now, and I'm happy with where I'm at. And everybody's journey is different. So I like to share for people to know that we all have our explorations, and it's not by any means a comparison of this is the way I've done it, you've got to do it this way. I like to share and say, you do it your way. How can we walk this journey together?
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, wow, it's quite a journey you've been on. So, thinking about the listeners as well, and you spoke many times about really starting to come home to your body and actually be back in your body. What did that look like for you? How have you been going about doing that to help people? Because quite often people have traumatic, or not even aware they've had traumatic experiences, but yet when especially when they come into our events or retreats, you can sense that a lot of their energy isn't fully back. It's not grounded. It's not earthed, and they're not fully present in the moment. How is that? When did the light bulb go on for you in terms of bringing that energy home to yourself, and how did you go about doing that as well?
Sure, that's a great question. My journey's been very experiential. I started off with counseling. I then started to become a counselor, part-time counselor for hospice myself. And every part of my journey, neuro-linguistic programming, yoga, I would go in and out, cold water therapy. I mean, the first time I went cold water plunging, which was 3 years ago here in New Zealand, I completely left my body. Nobody prepared me. It was crazy, you just see everybody like walking in on this winter's day, and you just see like, nobody said like, Michelle, you need to breathe. And I just felt the energy of what I was feeling. And I let out this rip roaring, like, la, 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 la. And everybody looked at me, and I was called the screamer in this group. But I then realized that I'd left my body again. So I don't have a specific answer, to be honest. It's just something that has been a learning for me to notice when I'm in my head, and just teaching myself continuously, I'm safe. I am enough. I'm safe. I am enough. And I'm genuinely quite a chatty person too. And I realize when I'm out of my body and sometimes that happens when I'm sensing a lot, because I am incredibly open as the channel that I am. So even if I'm going into a social environment, I kind of I've started to teach myself to go out, but to still be in. And then I just sense. But if I'm just like going from my day-to-day business and I walk into, let's say, a supermarket, and somebody walks past me and I start to chat, like I can just sense things. And then I've got to bring that part of myself back. But I've worked with past life regression. I've done a lot of deep healing. The connection with the soul, the young girl, we did a past life regression session where I brought that fractal of myself, because clearly the impact, I mean, I don't know what I'd hit. I was in horse territory and farm territory, and her body had hit, rolled, and she rolled into the bush. So when I looked, I didn't know what was going on, but a part of me had left, and I needed to bring that fractal back. So again, it's a learning for me to be in my body. It's a learning for me to give myself downtime. And the biggest way that I've learned is just to place my hands on my heart and just breathe. I've done a lot of breath work, grounding, taking my shoes off. Again, my journey has been to not learn to disassociate. And especially if I can feel when I'm in fight or flight. I talk differently. I can sense things differently. If my son walks in and if I'm chatting and he walks into my room and I get a fright, I'm like, oh, okay, I've got to I've got to regulate my nervous system. I've done plant medicine. So for me, it's important to have let go so much of the ancestral, the intergenerational that I've come in with. And I'm an explorer. I'm like, let's deep dive. And music is my go-to as well. Like if I feel like, because sometimes when I'm in a state of flux, I can, okay, I'm breathing. Michelle, stop. I have to tell myself, and then I would just hold myself. I would go and ask my husband for a hug. A hug would just bring me back. So it really is a learning for me, and it's just uncovering those layers. They were deeper than what they have been or are now. But I still have moments in time where something would trigger me and I would disassociate. So I know I haven't answered your question correctly, or perhaps in the way that might not help anybody. But there are so many therapies out there and modalities, and I feel like your spirit will bring the right one to you at the right time.
I'm actually here right now at a retreat space in Taupo, New Zealand, and it's beautiful. And it really brings home the difference between understanding this work and actually living it. Because that's what retreats can do and why we're so passionate about it. They give you the space to slow down, to reconnect, and truly let something deeper land. So it's not just an idea, but it's a lived experience. That's why we created Live in Flow. So if you've been feeling this shift in your own life and you know you're ready to go deeper, then come back to liveinflow.co to find out more. Anyway, back to the episode.
No, it's perfect. I mean, I think it's a great conversation to get people thinking about these things as well, and knowing it's coming within ourselves is where all the answers lie, and we so often look externally. You know, it's funny you say cold therapy, because I have a permanent ice bath and sauna in my garage, and
Wow.
and I've been doing it for 10 years, and it's been a very strong fundamental aspect of actually getting myself in my body. They're extremely powerful tools when used in these contexts as well, and to be present, because that's the only place you can be if you're going to sit in the cold or the heat, is to really be with each moment as they
Very
happen.
much so. Yeah.
So you speak of guides, you speak of channeling the Council of Eight as well, and these things that have been coming forward for you. Have you always had a spiritual connection through all these things? Were you aware of guides? Were there any mystical experiences from childhood or anything? Or has this been more of an evolution as you've healed your wounds?
Mostly as I've healed my wounds, and but I came to discover that my mom was psychic, but she was safer in church. So we grew up in church as well. And I always loved Jesus. I mean, I loved the Pentecostal, churches, and I loved the energy, and I loved the vibration. And, for me, speaking in tongues is light language when I think of it today. But as I let go of that heaviness that I was holding on within my cells, and changing my belief system, changing the way I'd been conditioned, I started to open myself up to more. And as I mentioned, I started counseling. I was being counseled, but I started counseling first. And my very first moment of seeing, what do we even call it? A light body, a human that was once here, was a woman sitting opposite me, and she was holding a baby. And I had no idea that she'd actually had a stillborn, but I described the baby to her, and she said, "How do you know this? How do you know that?" And I think when I look back, I can't remember a specific moment of me saying, "Oh, I remember this as a child or that as a child." I just know that I opened up myself when I started to allow myself to be vulnerable, because my heart was so protected and so guarded for such a long time that, a friend actually said to me, "Mich, a broken heart is an open heart." Well, you can look at that in different ways. But yes, as I started to elevate my consciousness, and I did deep diving into Louise Hay, Abraham, Wayne Dyer, and I was really just starting to look, and I'd drive my friends mad because I don't understand. I'd like phone them and say, "I don't understand. What does Wayne Dyer mean?" They say, "Mich, just face and feel, just feel, because I used to stay in my head a lot because that's what kept me safe. But as I was doing my yoga teacher training and doing more yoga, and slowly but surely I started to sense things and see things, and then have what I would term these knowings, because we all have the knowing. We just perhaps shut it down. In my experience, I closed off my heart. My heart knows everything. So I needed to reopen it and learn to trust myself, but also trust what I was being shown. And as I came to New Zealand, I went into a big depression, leaving South Africa behind, all our family. And we were in Queenstown. We're just surrounded by these mountains, which are these vortexes of crystals. And it really threw me off my center. But I started to just sit on the floor and started to connect into the mountain energy. And then the council started to share with me it's important to get back into my work again. And I was like, I can't, that's how it felt. Like, who am I to work with people? So I started counseling again, that made me feel safe. And then I started my connection again. And I started having these moments, like an 8, when I had a client on my therapy bed. And I used to think, who are you? Like, this feels different. And they would start asking me to use music. And then I'd start to sing. And I still didn't know who, because it felt very different. And I'd get really cold, Guy. Like, my hands would get really cold, and my nervous system would really get cold. Not cold, but I would start to shiver. And it was very different to me releasing trauma. Have you heard about TRE?
With the
Trauma
eye
release?
movement? Is it?
That's EMDR, from what I understand. But TRE is you do different movements, and your body starts to tremor. You lie on your back and you lift, you elevate, and the body starts to tremor. So it was a very different sensation to me tremoring when I was releasing trauma, to how I was starting to, what I would term, go through these upgrades. And then the one day I just sat in meditation. I said, who are you? And they said, we're the council. I'm like, well, the council of who? And I had no idea about galactic energy or the Galactic Federation of Light. Yet again, the universe delivered, because I moved to New Zealand. I met an ex-South African, and she just was out there. Have you heard about the Galactic Federation of Light, Mich? I'm like, who? And I started to go into fear. I'm like, this is just too much for me, man. Like, let me just work with a human. And I love the fact that when I look at that connection again, our knowing always knows, our soul always knows who to bring in when we are ready. It's called divine timing in my experience of life. But it was a bridge. I had to build the bridge and navigate and learn to trust. And slowly but surely, they started to connect with me. They were ready. I was just never ready. And again, when I went into a hypnosis session, they've been with me since I was a baby. Like, I've come into this world and they've always surrounded me. But for want of a better statement, my learning has been to work with myself as a human. And as myself as a human has learned to let go, I've started to learn that there's so much more out there. And as I've learned to just be in the flow of life, life comes to me. And they've shared some beautiful, I would negotiate with the counselor bait, and I'd say, please keep it simple, because I like simple. And they're here for the human experience. And they share Akashic records. They've started to bring through different frequencies, different tonings, different tunings through my voice. So that was part of me teaching myself to sing with music. They are so clever, and I'm in awe of what they share. And I love how some people have connected with me and said, Mich, I've had people, and not people, I will sit in meditation. We've heard the Council of 8. And I'm like, yeah, they're not here just for me. They're here for everyone. If you think of the symbolism of 8, it's infinity, it's infinite, yet it's a mirror of who we are. And the universe is this. And it's, for me, this is what they're here to show, is that we all are connected. And that's why I'm very grateful to you to allow my story to be shared, because, it's not about me. It's about how we can all navigate this journey in this lifetime. But we also have parallel lives that are working through us, or perhaps that we're connecting into. There's so many different expressions. And for me, what's important is how we feel it. Like, I'm a feeling person. I've got to feel it. Like, I've got to get goosebumps. Then I know, like, yes, that's it. That's just me. And other people may have a different experience to what my experience is with connecting with different beings. But I see beyond the veil very easily. So that's why it's very important for me to have meditation, to be and to learn what's going on inside of my body. because I don't like to project onto others. So if I'm having a not so good day or my energy levels are flat,
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to say to a client, if you don't mind, can we please postpone? Because I want to come through in the fullness of who I am to show up with somebody else. Does that make sense? Have I answered your question? Sorry, I go off on these tangents.
No,
I'm
no,
like, am I answering?
it's no, it's totally great. I'm just sitting here listening, and yeah, I think the projection point that you raise as well is so important. I mean, that even that for our everyday lives, let alone when we're working with people, right? Just check in with ourselves. How are we feeling? Am I tired? What emotions are actually sitting within me? You know, you can ask anyone on the street, how are you feeling? Everyone just says good. I mean, it's like as if it's the universal feeling, good, when there's so much more to us and we don't actually stop to check in and be with what is. And we just project onto everything else through the lens of which we feel, you know. And if we start to really unpack that and allow what wants to move and transmute and flow, then our lives would look, I think the world would look a very different place, let alone our individual lives. You know,
Yeah.
with that question, a couple of things that come, questions I want to ask you then. You spoke about the veil being quite thin for you and that you can see. How does it, like, how would you describe it when you hear the Council of Eight, or what do you see? Do you actually see with your eyes, or do you see with your inner eye, your third eye within the brain? Like, how does it all come together for you? I'm just really curious.
Sure, that's a great question. Initially, I saw from my third eye, but it's both. I close my eyes when I always have this moment with them. I go, "Are you guys ready?" So they're like, "Yep, we're hanging out 24/7, just waiting for you." Like I have a real jovial relationship with them. So when I sense and it's because of the work that I do, I'm just in it, you know. And that for me is what I love to share with everybody, is that we're just in it. We're expansive, but our emotions keep us contracted. So I close my eyes, and this is how I taught myself, was to close my eyes. I take a few breaths, and then I'll get a, we're ready, you know. And I mean, even as we're chatting, I know that the resonance of their vibration is very much here right now, because they already had shared with me. I connect with them in meditation. I just ask them to help me, guide me through my day, and it's, I don't remember as a channel. I remember certain things. If you had to say to me, Mich, do you remember this? Or that they spoke about that? They spoke about that. Do you remember? I go, oh, yes. Oh, but I like to be just, it's kind of like the information comes through. The information comes through. The information comes through for the person that is either sitting here or anybody that's listening. And then it's like, oh, because I'm very much about, I love being human. I didn't like it for a freaking long time, and I did want to check out. There were many times that I was like, man, what's the point of being here? But I love being human. And I think sometimes that's what we forget as humans, is that, you know, people all want to go out there but we have to have the human experience. And we get to hug. We get to just experience life in the best way that we possibly can. And that's like a smorgasbord of everything. You know, it's like tasting this and then you don't like that, or having that. And that's what I have. It's kind of like my contract with them is, guys, when I'm in myself, when I'm in my space of openness, which I am always, in all ways, the connection is it's just instantaneous. But I have my practice of just closing my eyes, and then Michelle, the personality, steps aside and they come through. Yeah, and it's very much from here. It's a very, very much a resonance of, because I can feel my hands starting to get cold, even as I'm sharing with you right now. And I can feel that the energies are really starting to come through.
So who are the Council of Eight? What do they want? What are they doing?
Great question. They're angelic beings of light. This is how they've shared themselves to me. They're angelic beings of light, ascended masters who once walked these earth planes. Hence, they are here to help with us as humans. they share Akashic records, they call us out, they share love, they share truth. And they're here to fulfill us in our light selves and our cells, hence the tonings and the frequencies that come through my voice. So as an example, they may share something with you, and they may say you're holding on to your mother's, like 11, 12 generations of guilt. Let's say hypothetically of guilt. And they'll ask you to have a few breaths, and they will share toning or a frequency. And I never know what that is. It's always different, always. And that will be either felt, and it will start to shift in your vibration, because we are frequency. We are a resonance. And I do love how they call people out. I once had one of the ladies in our group that was moaning. Literally, she's like, I don't get this. And they went, blah, 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 blah. And I know this because she reminded me, she sent me a very disgruntled message. She's like, I thought angels are always love. And I said, well, what did they say? And I got a little bit perplexed. I thought, oh shit, what did they say? And she said, well, Michelle, they called me out.
So
And
you were
I said,
channeling at this point. Sorry. So you can't remember.
I was channeling.
Got it. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
no. And she emailed me, and she was, luckily enough, she's just such a beautiful human in the sense that she got it. Because I said, well, did it bring change? Did they bring change? And she goes, yes. I stopped. I caught myself, and now I catch myself when I'm actually bitching and moaning, when I'm in my victim of self. So I said, okay, because I really did. I was like, guys, we need to recontract this. Like you can. And they said, well, people want truth. So we're here to speak truth. And they have this delightfulness about themselves. They laugh at stuff that I would, at times, if I listen to channelings, I'm like, wow, you laughed at that? And they're like, well, that's what we're here for, is to help you humans to lighten up. And the way they've shown themselves in the beginning to me was they are different energies of Nelson Mandela, Lady Diana, Mother Teresa, Mother Mary, Jesus. But they've said it does not matter. You know, we're seeking the evidential.
Mm-hmm.
They've said what matters is what comes through and how it helps us to heal. And that's what I love. Like, even they don't talk about past lives. They talk about past timelines. And they will say, in a past timeline, you did this and this and this. And this person would say, wow, I can feel that. As an example, your throat was slashed. And they would say, I can feel that energy. And they say, okay, we'll just take a few breaths and let's help you to clear that vibration. They're very, very aware of helping us not sit in our pain and suffering. And that's what I really love about how they share. And sometimes they do. They're very honest, and they just share it. And have you heard of the telepathy tapes? This is a sideline.
I've heard of them. That's all.
Okay. Now, if you ever choose to listen to the telepathy tapes and the nonverbal autistic children, they are very honest. They're just pure consciousness, and they call us out in the way that we perhaps, their connection in ways. And that's what I'm learning. I mean, the Council of Eight have shared with me many times, we learn from you humans as much as you learn from us. And that's what I like. It's it's a synergy of how we go backwards and forwards. And it's a dance. They plant seeds along the way, and they will say to us, you guys have free will. We're planting the seeds. What you choose to do with the planting of the seed is up to you. And they remind us that we're powerful, guy. That's what I love. Because I think a lot of times we've forgotten how powerful we are as human beings.
Yeah. This is more a question for myself more than because I ponder on these things. Like you spoke about 12 generations ago, you're holding your grandma's anger or guilt or whatever it be, or now, like in a parallel life or a different timeline, you had your throat slashed, and you're holding that. What are your thoughts on? Do they only present themselves when they're ready to be released? Like, because obviously we're not aware of these things that are happening. How could we be unless we guide it or go into deep meditative places? What are your thoughts on those kind of things that present themselves? And also, could we release them ourselves, or do we need support?
I think everybody's journey is different. I think that absolutely we can release it ourselves, yet there's a lot of unconscious, in my own journey, there's a lot of unconscious, unfiltered stuff that we're not even aware of at times. So, I would give a simple example of, if I'm irked by something, or I can feel I'm frustrated because perhaps my husband and I have been in an argument and we haven't really come together, and I'm going into town and all of a sudden an old person at a roundabout, cuts me off. I know that's my vibration. I know that that's something going on within me because I'm bringing it in. I personally, on my own journey, have loved to be supported, and I feel that it's important that we support one another, we hold one another in whichever way that is felt. I know that I've had moments with clients that we've had a deep dive into themselves, the unfiltered layers of what they perhaps are carrying. And sometimes people don't like to hear what comes up for them. And that's okay. I will say to anybody, ask your heart to bring in, ask the universal connection to bring in you. That is it. It's you, universe. There's you and there's you. And some people like to do it in their own way. I most certainly don't. I've loved to have human beings help me and guide me and help me to see things that I may not wanting to be seen because of my condition or the way that I've been taught. So for me, I show up sometimes, and plant medicine is a. Have you ever had plant medicine journeys, guys?
I have. I've done one ayahuasca journey. Yeah.
That I've done two, and I've done quite a bit of psilocybin. That for me is where you just go, holy, oh my God. I'm like, okay, and there's more. So, but what I feel is important is to allow the integration of plant medicine afterwards, because I've had people, everything plays its part, and I've had clients who've gone into unconscious energy that they've suppressed, and they don't even know what to do with it, and then they want to deep dive into more and more and more. And sometimes, for my understanding, knowing the body and learning our body is it's just working with those different layers, working with the subconscious, but working with our nervous system. And for me, the more we feel safe in the world, the more we'll bring humans into our life that will walk the journey with us, that can help us navigate. It's kind of like going into a dark cave and you don't have a flashlight, but you've got somebody who's spirit,
beautiful.
who's got somebody who's going, I've got you, bud. Because that's what we want. We want community, I believe.
Absolutely. And, I have people around me that show up my blind spots all the time, and
how's it working for you?
It works very well. It works very well indeed.
That's awesome.
And very needed. But no, I'm a huge believer in mentors and guidance and having people that have walked the path before you, because the mind is so limited, really. And we put all our eggs in that basket, and we don't listen to that knowing and that sense that's pulsating underneath, right within us. Just as we come to a close to the podcast, I am curious as well in your thoughts, and we spoke about it slightly off there as well, about if the council want to share or even your own thoughts, either or, about where we are at the moment within the planet. There's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of change, uncertainty. There's things getting bombarded at us all the time. But it feels as well that this information seems, I don't know whether it's my lens I'm looking through, because I have a podcast and I have these conversations all the time, or that this information is getting out there. More and more people are starting to explore these ideas and modalities and realize that healing is not just a physical component. It's a much deeper deeper truth that lays behind the physical. I'd love to get your thoughts on that, or the council's thoughts, or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Are we heading in the right direction, or is it truly up to us right now?
So, if I may give you my thoughts, and then perhaps if we have a little bit of time, I can channel. My thoughts are absolutely 100,000 million% yes, because if you notice how many people are kind of waking up to themselves and waking up to the realities of so much, and I love how we're flipping, and it's felt uncomfortable for so many people. Yet at the same time, there is an uncomfortability that is happening energetically for many people. And that's why I just want to continue sharing joy and love as best as I can, and showing up in my own authentic self and saying, shit, man, sometimes it feels so tough and so out there. Who do we believe? Who are we gravitating towards? Who are we bringing in? And it always is from here. So if we have some time, I can bring them through, and you can just say to them, please bring Michelle back based on your timeline, and I'm sure they will be able to.
We got 5 minutes. Go for it. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Guy. We are so excited to show up for you today and for many others. And notice how we showed you so excited. We, as the Council of Eight, we say to you that humanity is walking through a timeline of generosity, compassion, connecting. We'll say it again, connecting into your truth of who you are. Many of you have walked with your heads down, not wanting to look up, not wanting to rise into your own frequency of source. You are all interconnected. You are well aware of this, so you're not, beloved Guy. You are your own truth. You are your own light. You are your own knowing. As we come through Michelle right now, we are not having to sit here and say, beat. Can you beat? Can your heart beat? What about now? What about now? What about now? Hence we talk about connection. Everything is as simple as your breath. Humanity has been destructive. Humans have been destructive. Humans have been in suffering for far too long. And now there's this momentous occasion where you are all learning to find your newness of who you are within this light body, within this meat suit. And there are changes that are happening for humanity. And it may feel uncomfortable. It may feel as if you're wanting to take one arm off and then another arm off, yet place it back and place it back. And it is simple. Notice how we are holding Michelle right now. Hug yourselves more. Hug yourselves more. Hug yourselves more. Hug yourselves more. We're showing you this as when one is looking outside of themselves. They are not looking within inside. It is very, very, very different frequency. Do you have any questions for us, please?
Right now, when we do look outside of ourselves, we can feel quite helpless. How does one listening to this look inside themselves to feel self-empowered, to know that everything that they have is already within them. How do we nurture that?
As you are nurturing yourself right now with these deep conversations that you are having, that is looking inside of yourself, is it not?
Yeah.
As you smile across at any guest that is sitting opposite you, as you smile at your people around you, as you walk and look at an animal, a dog wagging its tail. How many times do humans notice how nature is giving all the time? The waves come in and the waves go out. This is a sense of nourishment, is it not? So you are all relearning to retune into this vibration. You are one aware that heart is the truth of love. Love is the only vibration that truly is a knowing. And as you learn in this human plane at this time, there are many desires that many humans are questioning. Let go of what no longer serves you. It may be materialistic. It may not be. It may be friendships. It may not be. Yet your cells are doing a dance. And as you allow your cells to do the dance, and notice how we are showing you with Michelle's body right now, you are all setting yourselves free in this very moment, as this is the only moment that exists in truth. We are honored to show up for you all. We are honored to be here in light, not in the light, in light, as we are all deeply connected. May we please end off with a frequency of love.
We may.
Have we answered your question, beloved?
You have. Thank you.
We thank you. We thank you. Namaste.
Namaste. How do you feel?
I always feel amazing after they've come through. I'm like, can we just hang out all the time? How do you?
I feel great. I feel that as they were coming through, the more I was here just holding space, the more I've felt the frequency continue to increase. It's fascinating. Do you remember anything that was said then? Like, are you like a passenger in the car, or do you just permanently, like, where are you?
My husband would love to answer you like nowhere at times. He calls me a squirrel. I'm here, like I know I'm here. I can see you, but my body is just, I can feel energy shifting through me. Like I start to get warm. I can feel my hands are really cold. As someone who works with humans, often, clients will go, "Why are your hands so cold?" And that's one of the myths that I've changed for myself. Michelle, healers have warm hands. I'm like, oh, okay. But I the only thing I remember is like I want to say the frequency of what comes through. It felt very, very, like very grounding. That's the only thing that I remember.
Wow.
I think you had a question, if I'm not mistaken, around
I did.
humanity.
Yeah, there's a couple of
Yeah.
questions in there. They got me to ask them.
Oh,
Yeah. Fantastic. Mate,
thank you, Carl.
you're welcome. Where can people go? We'll have links in the show notes beneath the video and audio, but where can we send them?
www.michcarpenter.com. And there they'll be able to see my services and my offerings. And I mean, very, very, very grateful for this time and for sharing. I know that for me, the more we share, the more we come together as humans. Collaborating like this is what lifts me up. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And what services do you offer?
So I'm a spiritual medium. I connect with loved ones who have passed over into spirit. And I love to give evidence of who they are, and they also bring through very healing messages. And I use music a lot of the times. Often, they share things with me on Spotify that I've got no idea. They like to share that they're here right now, that there is no separation. I work with energy. And the Council of Eight, their messages that come through, they'll share Akashic records. I never know. They plant seeds with people. And I am working telepathically with nonverbal, autistic children and young adults at the moment. Hence, I mentioned the telepathy tapes. And I'm very grateful to be someone that is able to help parents, especially when I just tune into the soul of what the soul is showing me, or the heart of what the child or the human is showing me. And they share things with parents to let them know that they're in there.
Oh, beautiful.
Wow,
that's gorgeous. I have one question left. I ask everyone on the show, and I almost forgot then, but with everything we covered today, is there anything you want to leave the listeners to ponder on?
Gosh, look at me. That sounds like a heavy sigh. The very thing that comes to me is, and this is just something that I was shown many years ago in South Africa, is that love is why we are here. And that's one of my catchphrases, and it's not mine, it's for everyone. We're here to experience love, and love is shown in many different ways to many different people. So I'm going to offer you my little heart today. And just be joyful, just watch children. They don't sweat the small stuff. They're done. They cry, they get up, and children show us in ways that are, eat ice cream and freaking mess it all over your face. Find the joy. Be silly, be quirky, be weird, man. Like, just join the group.
Sure. Yeah.
But be real.
Yeah.
Be authentic and be real.
Yeah, beautiful. I have 2 young children, and they constantly reminded me to bring that inner child out of me. That's for sure.
I love that.
It's pretty cool.
I love
it.
Yeah.
Mitch, lovely to connect. Thank you so much. You are, and I'm sure it's not the last time either. Thank you so much.
Oh, I look forward to it. And welcome to New Zealand when you're here next week.
Next week, we'll be in Tauranga and Auckland running our workshops. And I got a funny feeling it'll be the first of many. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be
amazing.
Exciting.
And may you be blessed with the spirit of the Easter Islanders and the Maori people. And let me know if you ever come to Nelson, because there's some beautiful spaces here too.
Good to know. Yeah, I can't wait. The Welsh blood in me is resonating very strongly with New Zealand. I assure you, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, if you can just, the energy, that presence is just, it's strong. The tribal,
that mana,
it's just an honor. That mana is so strong, and it's just I think you'll feel it.
Well, I can't wait.
I feel like I want to break out into a haka. I don't even know how to do haka.
It'll be awesome.
Enjoy. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rich. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye.